So one of the things that we do at We the Govern, and I talk about this a lot, is the importance of civic engagement and activism and being engaged in the political process in whatever way it is that seems to fit your interests and in whichever way seems to be most productive, or at least in some way that you're making an impact with local government. Part of the way that I think people who are activists, and if you're like me, you're kind of a conservative activist, you're trying to perhaps reduce the negative elements of government and trying to keep it from being so intrusive in people's lives, or at least be engaged in transparency, you're going to find some kind of an area in which you're going to be interacting. For me, it's been a lot with the Public Disclosure Commission in Washington State. And so what I wanted to do with this video is just to give you a sense of an example, just as an example, not because I expect everybody to imitate me exactly or to do the exact same thing I'm doing, but just to get an idea of some of the things that I am doing, and maybe that inspires you to do something where you live or that would be equivalent. So I recently have been catching up on some of my Public Disclosure Commission complaints, and I've actually filed quite a few lately. These complaints are mostly directed at political activities that are not political actors generally. Sometimes it's politicians, sometimes it's large corporate PACs, sometimes it's political parties, local political parties that are not following Washington State's campaign finance laws, which is RCW 4217A if you're interested. And there's a process there. You can file complaints if you catch people who've broken the law substantially, and I've caught a lot of them. My website at We the Govern clearly shows a lot of the ones that have been fined or have been sanctioned or gotten in trouble in the past. There's hundreds of them that I've caught over the years. But recently, I hadn't been keeping up with some of the volume that I've done historically, and so I've just decided I would get back into it and try to catch up on some of the lawbreakers that I've missed over the last couple of years. And so as part of that process, I also went to the Public Disclosure Commission hearing last week. And I spoke to the commission. The commission's an appointed board by Governor Inslee, and so he appoints them. He's supposed to appoint partisan people, both Republican and Democrat, to this board, and they're the ones who are supposed to supervise this, or at least be in charge of the agency itself, the investigators and the people that are in charge there. So I just went in there to talk to them, and I use this video. I'll just play the first minute of my 3-minute public testimony here, so you get a chance to see what that looks like.
Comments, or folks are here in person, so Glenn Morgan, welcome.
It's always good to be here in front of the commission in person again. I just wanted to, for the record, my name is Glenn Morgan, and I actually file a lot of PDC complaints here. So it's funny, 6 years ago, I think I sat down and met with Director LaValle shortly after he was appointed by the governor. And I remember having a conversation saying that I thought I would do this for about 5 years and kind of address some of the issues that I thought existed in the campaign finance laws at the time. And it's 6 years later, and I'm kind of getting back into it again. So I feel like I kind of dropped the ball for a while. I did try to train a bunch of people to be a little bit more efficient and effective at filing campaign finance complaints, and some people are starting to do that a little bit better, I think. But it just turns out it's easy for me, and it's not hard for me to do it. And I'm just trying to catch up on what I've missed over the last couple of years. But one thing I found is that.
Okay, now that's basically kind of the reason why I wanted to play that for you, just to give you a sense of, there's nothing special about public comment, and this is a relatively small and kind of a little bit less formal sort of public comment process than other agencies or public entities might have. But I'm just at the table. What you can't tell from the screen is that the commissioners and some of the staff members are actually there kind of around this circular table. I'm kind of at one end of it. And it doesn't have to be intimidating. And you don't have to have some elaborate testimony laid up, as long as you have a basic message that you're trying to deliver to them. And I know one of the things is that small government people, those of us who believe government's too big and we want to shrink it down to something, there tends to be an adversarial relationship that we have with government. totally understandable. I experienced that many times myself. But that doesn't mean that you need to have a personally adversarial role with some of the people that are there. In this case, the Public Disclosure Commission actually does some good work, and what I'm trying to do is to encourage them to actually address some of the issues that I've uncovered with corruption or law breaking with these large PACs and some of these Democrat Party committees and some of these other groups that I've caught recently. And so there's no reason not to come and talk to these people, and they are working for us. They work for you. Your taxpayer dollars are paying their salary. And when you do that, I think that it's perfectly appropriate to come in there and just explain to them what you're doing. There's no secret sauce, no hidden agenda. It's very out in the open. It's as public can be. And I think letting them know that you're approachable and that you're trying to maybe improve. One of the things that I mentioned in here is I am trying to improve the quality of the complaints that I'm filing. And so there's a records request I actually have now with the agency where it really will help me, I think, improve the quality of the complaints that I file. And so I'm there basically trying to address this. Now, I'm going to play another video here because this meeting went on for a couple hours. I didn't stay there the whole time. You'll note at the end of my public testimony, if you want to go back and look at it, I'll have it linked down below. But at the end of my public testimony, I mentioned that I'm going to just sit there in the room for a while and file complaints, which I did. I sat there in the room just observing how the process works a little bit and what the meeting's about. It's much better to do it in person if you can like this. But and I did file complaints while I was sitting there. But after I left, actually, they did talk about me. And again, this is a public record, public meeting. Obviously, this is a TVW video, so Television Washington. It's kind of the public government channel. And you'll hear them talk briefly about my feedback that I've given to the state agency. And I think this is useful just to listen to it and get a sense of them discussing what these issues are.
Well, thanks. I'll be unfortunately perhaps in this context brief because I had planned to respond to some of the public comment in this portion, which I've already done some of. And I think Mr. Edwards' public comments were covered somewhat in our legislative discussion. And I appreciate Mr. Morgan giving us the heads up that we may see hundreds more complaints, which is something that does add to our cycle time, unfortunately, because we only have so many people to review those cases.
All right, I think I'm going to kind of just cut that off there. I will reference there was about a 5-minute conversation. I don't want to play it all for you because that's going to probably bore you when you look at it. But for those who are more interested, you can hear them discuss. A couple things they mentioned was just I was letting them know that I'm going to file, a couple hundred complaints. And I'm really trying to do the best job I can to thoroughly document the violations that I'm uncovering. And that's going to have an impact on workflow, obviously, at the state agency. And so it's a legitimate concern that they're bringing up about, hey, we're going to have to kind of manage our employees here to make sure that we can handle all the work that Mr. Morgan's complaints they're going to produce for us as an agency. And so, yes, I'm definitely a critic of some of Washington State's campaign finance laws. Yes, I'm a critic of big government when it's out of control, which it is in most cases. But I think sometimes you're going to have some interaction that you need to have, and I think there's nothing that prevents you from doing it in a very professional and important role. I think that if you want to be highly ineffective as an activist, then you scream and yell at people, and you hide in the shadows, or you don't, you're trying to conceal who you are. I think that if you want to be effective, you can't hide. You're going to have to let people know who you are, and you're going to have an interaction with people who are in these agencies. It doesn't matter whether it's a school board or whether it's Department of Ecology or even if it's an agency that you want to get rid of. It helps if you do a little bit more research and do some research on them, and you're going to want to interact with them a little bit. And so they may not like you too much, but they still have to interact with the public, and provided that you do it in a professional and respectful way, I think that you can actually have quite an impact. That includes your local elected officials. I think speaking at public hearings is impactful for them. It doesn't mean they do exactly what you want. It doesn't mean they'll even necessarily listen to you every time. But over time, I believe if you have that kind of interaction with whatever that agency, whatever that cause is that you've picked and you've decided you want to focus on, you can make quite an impact. What won't make an impact at all is if you just sit back at home and complain about what's going on and refuse to do anything. You'll see if you track, I'm going to link to the enforcement page list here at the PDC, you'll see that I'm pretty engaged. I'm doing filing a lot of complaints. I have a lot more to file. And if you look at my website, you'll see that I've been pretty effective at doing that. Now, my first 30 or 40 complaints weren't as effective as the more recent ones that I file are. So you learn as you go along, and you become more effective, more impactful as time passes, I think. So just remember, if you want to be involved in the political process, you want to make a difference, you want to change things and make them better, you're going to have to just get out there and do it, and not be afraid of stepping out of the shadows or putting the spotlight on yourself. You sit down in front of a public comment here. It can be scary maybe in the beginning, but it doesn't have to be. And listen, a lot of people here that work in these agencies are just people like you and I trying to do the best they can in their situation. Not all of them. There's some bad actors there too, but just treat them like you would want to be treated if you were in their position. And I think that you'll find you can make a lot bigger impact than you realize. So with that, hopefully this was sort of helpful for you. This is a different format than we've used in the past, so I'm interested in your feedback. If you like this format for some of the videos that we do, if you love it or hate it, just comment down below, let me know. And we'll probably do a few more and just to see how well it works and if it's doing a good job communicating to people like you who are watching these videos and hopefully wanting to make your own impact. And I'm just going to kind of close with the statement that I always do. Remember, the future belongs to those who show up.